Hello, and welcome to another high school Sunday school lesson. We are continuing this week from last week's episode on the Gospel of St. John. We said there are 4 Gospels: the Gospel of St. Matthew, St. Mark, St. Luke, and St. John. The 3 synoptic Gospels are St. Matthew, St. Mark, and St. Luke. St. John's Gospel mainly focuses on the divinity of Christ. We mentioned last week the first 3 signs in the Gospel of St. John. The first was the wedding of Cana, where he transformed water into wine. Next was the healing of the nobleman's son, and the third was the healing of the paralytic man at the pool of Bethesda. We will continue now with the remaining signs. Now, the 4th sign from chapter 6 is the feeding of the multitude. 5,000 men, not including women and children, with 5 loaves and 2 fish. This is also reminiscent of when God fed the Israelites manna in the desert, as we read in Exodus. Amazingly, we see this is the central sign or the central miracle, and it is also the only miracle repeated in all 4 Gospels. It is symbolic of the Eucharist, indicating the center of our life is the Eucharist. As he says, "I am the bread of life. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him." This miracle is also a representation of Christ's power to multiply. This young lad knew something in his heart. That is, what little he had in his own hands, when placed in the hands of Christ, will be greatly multiplied. Let us strive to give from all we have and put it in the hands of Christ, be it time, money, talents, skills, etc. As we put all we have in the hands of Christ, God will continue to richly bless us daily until we are filled, and there will still be more left over. The 5th sign we read from the same chapter following the feeding of the multitude is from chapter 6, is when Jesus walks on the Sea of Galilee. The disciples boarded a ship and rowed towards Capernaum. As they rowed, a great wind blew, tossing the ship, and they saw Jesus walking on the water. And at the moment he entered the ship, the wind ceased. Totally unconstrained by the natural laws of nature and laws of physics do not apply to him. The raging waves of the world are beneath him. If there is somewhere Jesus needs to be, he can just be there. The 6th sign we read from chapter 9, which is when Jesus gave sight to the man born blind. This gospel is read on the 6th Sunday of the Holy Lent. We see here that Jesus created eyes from mud and his saliva and told him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. This man experienced only darkness since birth, but Christ brought him from darkness to light. Once again, this miracle was done on the Sabbath, which spurred up the Pharisees even more. If Jesus has power to recreate eyes and to make them whole, we may rest assured that he has power to restore our physical bodies from conditions of decline and decay to conditions of wholeness in this life and the next. The final sign we read from chapter 11 is raising Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha, possess deep faith in Jesus' power to heal the sick. We see this when Mary falls to Jesus' feet and says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, whatever you ask of God, he will give you." We read that Lazarus has been dead for 4 days, and his body was even starting to decay. This is the miracle that brought his hour upon Jesus. It is because of this act that the Sanhedrin decided Jesus had to die. Just as Jesus brought light to the world in the man born blind, in the case of Lazarus, he brought life to a dead man. Taken together, Jesus is the light and life of the world. This miracle serves as the pinnacle of the first half of the gospel, providing a fitting transition to his ultimate act of glory, when Christ overcame and was victorious over death forever. I know we covered so much, so let's do a quick review. We said there are 4 Gospels. The 3 synoptic Gospels are St. Matthew, St. Mark, and St. Luke. St. John's Gospel focuses mainly on the divinity of Christ, and it is for this reason we symbolize it with an eagle. St. John, in his Gospel, speaks of 7 signs or miracles. Do you remember them? The first was the wedding of Cana, where he transformed the water into wine. Next was the healing of the nobleman's son. The third was the healing of the paralytic man at the pool of Bethesda. Fourth, and the central sign, is the feeding of the multitude. The 5th sign is where we see Jesus walking on the Sea of Galilee to the boat with his disciples. The 6th sign is when he gave sight to the blind man. And lastly, when he raised Lazarus from the dead. Each of these signs points us along the path towards realizing the whole point of St. John's Gospel, which may be summed up in what is often called the mission verse, John 3:16, and the memory verse I would like to conclude with. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. St. John's signs help us to walk in the path of believers, the road that the disciples follow towards eternal life with God. As we move deeper into Lent, our own reflections on these 7 signs can lead each of us to believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I hope you enjoyed and benefited from our discussion today, and I hope you feel encouraged to go ahead and read the Gospel of St. John. Until next time, stay blessed.